there, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions. And here I am in the car, headed down to Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland, once again. But it's a beautiful Saturday morning here in the Baltimore area, so it's definitely not a new comic book day. No, actually, Third Eye Comics is hosting Joshua Williamson, the writer on the brand new G.I. Joe #1 that just launched just a few days ago, came out in the newsstand. And it is going to be one of the hottest books of the year. G.I. Joe is one of the biggest IPs out there. And the whole Energon universe from Skybound Image Comics has been really top-notch all year long. And they've been doing some solo titles within the G.I. Joe universe. But here we go with the big brand G.I. Joe #1. And I picked up a bunch of copies on Wednesday. I got everything prepped. Everything's sitting here, right here beside me. Going down now to get in line and get a bunch of books signed. So when I get down there, I'll do some filming, get some books signed, and then I'll come back home. We'll do a little show and tell. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
I feel like it's in the same universe, but not really. But it's very totally the same. I thought it would come out this year, and then the artist had she got divorced, so it was like take as much time as you need. So that meant we had to push it back a bit. Hey, what's up, dude? Good to see you.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Books have been fantastic. It's so cool that you were in here right as a launch, right?
Yeah, it launched on Wednesday.
I don't know if I enjoyed this more or the all-in special. That was fantastic.
I got really nervous because one point we were talking to somebody at DC and they were like, they didn't understand how the flipbook worked. They thought we were going to turn it upside down.
I did too.
Oh, dude, no.
I did too.
Oh,
that's so funny.
Youngblood #1 is a flipbook. It's the same thing where it's two stories back to back like that. So I always signed the side that's the Superman side because I did like 99% of that side, you know? I wrote the outline for both pieces. But so it's like, to me, it was all just one big thing. I don't even think of it like that. I'm like, it's all. What's funny about that book is I feel like it's an experience. Like, that's the whole thing of it, right?
100%.
Like, you have to. And it was funny because when we got to San Diego, I was telling people, I'm like, listen, all respect to people who read digital, you have to read this in print. It's a print book. That's how I see it all as one big thing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
You know? I was nervous the day that it went to print.
I would have been really nervous.
Well,
bro.
thankfully, Paul Kaminsky, who was the guy who kind of like got to the end, he had worked on a flip book at Archie. So he knew how to do one, and he was talking to production, like, no, it's like this, and I was like, just really thankful that he was there to be like, no,
you
it's
need
like
that one
this.
dude.
Yeah, you would think it'd be simple, but it's good to have somebody who's done it before.
Well, at one point we were talking to them, and they were talking about putting ads in the middle, and I was like,
No.
what are you talking about? It's gonna meet in the middle.
Please stop.
There's a two-page spread. It was funny because Dan Mora, there are house ads in it, but Dan Mora, he emailed me, and he was like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And so I literally had to draw the two-page spread.
Right.
I was like, no, Darkseid's like this, all these characters are like this. Turned into him, and he was like, I don't understand. And then he drew that, and literally what I sent him is basically what he drew.
Nice.
Like, obviously it's Dan Moore who's amazing, but it's that whole thing where the characters are, because I was like, it has to read both sides. You know, and so that was like trying to explain that to people. And then be like, yeah, put to be continued here and stuff. It was like a whole production to make that thing work. It was like a year of my life to make that thing work. Years ago, Jeff
He
called
made
me.
the one good.
No, his is great. Yeah.
This is okay.
So Jeff called me one morning before Rebirth came out. He called me really early, and I had read Rebirth. But not the last 6 pages.
Right.
Like he cut out. No. This is why. No, listen. This is why. It was redacted. He cut them out. Oh, okay. So he called me and we're talking about a bunch of stuff, and I was like, hey man, can I just have those last pages? And this is early, and he was like, I don't know. He was like, I'm not sure if I want to give it to you. And I was like, you can trust me. Jesus. And then I was like, listen.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I should stop talking.
Yeah. Let's just stop this.
Basically,
all of the comics are awesome.
No. He was like, he basically said, we started talking about it, and I said, can I guess the ending? Can I guess the ending? And he was like, yes. You can guess the ending, but you're not going to get it. And I had 3 guesses. I'm not going to tell you what the other one was. You might as well do it. The second one was like, oh, was it Evil Legion of Superheroes because time's messed up? And he was like, no. And then I was like, okay. And then I know what the third one was. He's like, what is it? And I was like, it's Dr. Manhattan. And he was like, quiet. And then he goes, did someone tell you? And I was like, no, I guessed.
You guessed.
I guessed. And we had a whole talk about it. So I got right. That's why Flash Rebirth was the only book in Rebirth that had the button in it. Because
really?
I guessed it, and so I was able to be like, hey, can I just put the button at the end? And they were like, yes. So that's why on all the Rebirth specials,
I'm glad it was like a
the
carnival
one
experience.
Yeah.
Guess the Flash ending.
No, it was good though. I mean, I respect that because he was proud of what he was laying out. So it's like, you know, he was like, you're not gonna guess, but I totally guessed. And I guessed because I was like, well, there was a couple of things because it was Wally at the ending. He said at the end, someone's watching us.
Nice. Joshua,
yeah,
thank you so much.
for hanging
Appreciate
out.
the
Yeah.
stories and everything.
Yeah, no
Take
problem.
care.
All right, guys, I just finished up at Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, Maryland, and I had a great time meeting Joshua Williamson. He signed a lot of books for me while he was talking about some of the stuff that goes on in the comic book industry. It was fun just letting them get to talk, and I hope you enjoyed some of that footage that I shot there at Third Eye. Well, I'm going to go home. I'm going to take my books out of those window bags that you saw me have all my books in with all the blue painter's tape. I'm going to take those out, put them into some fresh bags and boards. We'll sit down and we'll do a little show and tell. So stay tuned and I'll be right back.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
All right, everybody, I made it back home, and I ended up taking all the books out of those window bags that I use when I go to a signing like that, and I put the books into a nice, clean bag and board. So let's just get right into it, and I'll show you everything I got signed by Joshua Williamson today. Most of these things are G.I. Joes, but I've got one book in there that's not. So we'll stand by. That will be the last book for the presentation today. So first up was Cover A. And you've got the main artist on this doing the cover for Cover A, Tom Riley. And as I said, I really enjoyed this comic book. I didn't think I was, but I actually really enjoyed the story. The art isn't quite my thing, but it's good enough. It actually is pretty good, considering a lot of the art that I've complained about these days. So, not going to complain too much about that, but I did get Cover A done. I got 2 copies of that. And then I did they've got the Villains cover right here with David Finch doing the artwork. And you can see Joshua Williamson signed right there. And I forgot to show you on the other one there. He signed it right there in the middle. But we got David Finch there. And the idea in a lot of these variants is that I do run across David Finch. He comes to Baltimore. He goes to Heroes Con. So does Susan Micah. She's been to Heroes Con before. And I think Jenny Finch was down at Heroes Con this year, although I couldn't go. Definitely tells me that she's starting to come to some of the cons that I go to. So all these books I'm going to hold to get signed at some point. So I'll probably hold on to this to get signed by David Finch. And I ended up getting 2 copies of that signed. Now, here's an artist that I would love to meet and get some books signed, but I have never seen him in person, or I had a chance to see him in person, but we've got Lee Bermejo, and it got this beautiful Cobra Commander cover right there. That was really beautiful detail, especially if you look at the gloves right here. If you guys get a copy of this, take a look at the detail on this. It's fantastic. And this one is a little bit harder to see. The silver paint pen that Josh was using, you can see it right there in the reflection, but it was not throwing the ink quite the way I would have liked. I wish I had switched out and said, hey, use my pen instead. But you're caught up in this moment, and if you guys watched all of that footage right there, he was just talking the whole time. He was talking about things that go on in the comics industry, how he was dealing with or talking with Jeff Johns about some of the Rebirth books and some of the storylines, and he was giving some insight on how he designed the all-in special that he did with Scott Snyder, things like that. And I hope you enjoyed some of the footage. Normally I'm not filming quite that much, but I thought it was kind of cool to see some of that insight, and I hope you enjoyed that. But it didn't give me a chance to break in and say, hey, sign with a better pen because your silver paint pen sucks. So there is that. That was the one downfall for today. But most of the books were like this. This is Susan Micah doing the cover here for the Baroness. And you can see the signature right there. And I ended up getting 2 copies of that signed. Now, Susan Micah was down at Heroes Con 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. And I didn't know who she was. She was just hot on the scene at that point. I believe it was a Catwoman cover that was the variant that was so hot. And to be quite honest, I had never even heard of her, just enough to know a name. I didn't know who she was. And I remember going by her table, and there were 2 women standing there, and I had no idea which one was which. Neither one of them were signing anything. They were literally just standing there, and I had no idea which one was which. I should have looked it up on the internet at the time. So I missed the chance to get her signature a couple years ago. And then she canceled this last year at Baltimore Comic Con, so another missed opportunity. So I've got a small pile of Susan Micah books now to get signed at some point. And this one, of course, will be signed by Joshua Williamson. But the other artist that I really want to get something signed by is Jenny Frison. And here you can see this beautiful cover. I don't know this character. It's one of the Cobra characters. I'll have to read this more to figure out who that is. It's been years since I've really read G.I. Joe. But you can see right there, it's barely visible there. You can see it there in the light a little bit. Those were not the best ones. The foil one came out just a little bit better. Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, that was the one disappointment. These foils and that Libra Mayhew cover just did not come out quite the way I would have liked. Definitely, I wish I'd reacted. I talked about that before, but you're letting the artists do their thing, and they're talking and they're telling stories, and you just kind of let them go. And then all of a sudden you realize that their pen doesn't work quite as well. And you've got honestly, it's a little disappointing. But again, those were the only books that really suffered from that. Everything else was light enough that he could use a regular marker like this right here, David Nakayama cover right there. And this is, I think, the 1:10 ratio right there is really good. He was down at Heroes Con 2 years ago. So again, there's a chance that I'll be able to see David Nakayama again, and I will take both copies of that to get signed as well. And then Third Eye did a couple of exclusives for the G.I. Joe launch, and I ended up getting one of those signed. This one is by Rian Gonzalez. And you can see Josh signed right up here. I don't know Rian Gonzalez, but this artwork was pretty cute. And I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to meet this artist in person, but I will definitely hold on to this at some point to get signed by this artist, by Rian Gonzalez, at some point. So those were all the G.I. Joe books I got signed. And they did have limits of how much you could get signed. And I pretty much hit that limit. So there were definitely some other copies of some things I wanted to get signed, but I did not. I held back. I didn't get the all-in special sign, and I only held back on that because I did not get Scott Snyder to sign that either. So I did have one other book that I got signed, and that was the Energon Universe #1 right there. And you can see his signature barely. You can see that up there. Again, it didn't throw ink really well, but it was already signed by Daniel Warren Johnson. Just a few weeks prior to this signing, Daniel Warren Johnson was there as well, and he was a great signer, and he signed this as well as some other Transformers books and things for me. So that was pretty cool to get 2 signatures on this book right here. I'm not much of a Transformers fan, and I had not been reading these G.I. Joe I was going to say one-shots, but they're solo series. Honestly, I wasn't going to get into it, but after reading this G.I. Joe #1, I may have to go back and reread everything that's been leading up to this point, because this book was really good. It's probably one of the written books of the year so far. So I will continue probably getting G.I. Joe for the time being and seeing if I enjoy this storyline to see how they're going to build things, because it really feels like they're building it from ground zero up. And I think that's pretty cool. Instead of worrying about the entire history of G.I. Joe that we've had ever since the Marvel comic came out in the early 80s, I think it's pretty cool if they're going to kind of build up this universe at this point with characters that we're already familiar with, of course, but kind of, at least that's what I think is happening, starting from ground zero. Anyway, guys, I want to thank Third Eye Comics for putting on such a great event. There were a lot of people there, as you can see in the video. If you guys ever want to come to these events, they offer on most of these signing events a VIP option. You pay for a package to get into the VIP line. It puts you in the first group. It also allows you to get more books signed than the general public. And then I actually belong to a club at Third Eye Comics called the Wednesday Warrior Elite Club, and that gives me access to the VIP line. I don't have to pay for that package. I've already, in a sense, already paid for that package. And luckily for me, and for about 299 other elite members, we are all part of the same club that enjoys these benefits. It's a lifetime membership at Third Eye as long as they're around doing these signings or any other event that they have an early access option, I guess, to it, or a component to it. We have access to that as long as we let them know in advance that we're going to attend. And so it's so cool to be able to get in there in the VIP. I don't have to pay for these packages anymore because these packages run $50 a piece. And I used to pay for these because most of these signings, most of them are on Saturday mornings. And I had work. I still work on Saturdays. And I had to be in by 3 o'clock. And if I didn't do the early access, I would be back in the public line, and that may be pushing 1 to 2 o'clock before the line actually finishes. So I definitely didn't want to cut it too close getting to work, so I would buy these packages. But when they offered this elite membership option, I jumped at it, and honestly, it's already paid for itself. Within 3 signings, it had already paid for itself, and it continues to go this way with every signing that come. If it's somebody I really like, I will go to these signings to get something signed. So Third Eye Comics has got a lot of great signings coming up over the next few months, including Sanford Green coming in only about a week after this signing. Of course, you guys may know him as the artist on Bitterroot, but I know him as the creator on the Doom #1 book from earlier this year, that one-shot. What a fantastic book. I think he co-wrote it with Jonathan Hickman, but he did all the artwork, and it had some fantastic variant covers. And it is a book you cannot find the regular cover, his cover, out there anywhere. I've been to 2 shows looking for this just recently, and I cannot find that book out there in the wild. You can order it off eBay. It's not going to be cheap. You can find it from some dealers. You can find some of the other variant covers, but that's about it. But I'm looking forward to that signing. And in February, we've got Jason Aaron coming in. Of course, he is the writer on the new Absolute Superman. You know him from that long run on the Avengers and a lot of other books, including Thor. He helped create Jane Foster's Thor. I mean, been there, done a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people who criticize what he does, but he is a pretty good writer on a lot of different things that I've enjoyed over the years. And he has been at Third Eye before. I've gotten several books signed by him. But I'm actually going to consider taking some CGC graded books that I've had signed by some of the artists that's worked on his books. Take them. I may crack them out and take them to the signing and then resubmit to CGC to get the books graded at that point. I haven't seen Jason Aaron at a con, and I don't know if it's going to be the best thing to do or not. That's something I will consider down the road. And they just announced that Charles Soule is going to be there at the store, I think in February as well. Of course, he has written so many great Star Wars stories. The 8 Billion Genies is his as well. So I'm looking forward to him coming in, and definitely take some books to get signed by him as well. All of these, I will be in that VIP line because I'm part of that Wednesday Warrior Elite Club. And hope to see you guys there. Definitely check out Third Eye's website for all the event information there. So that is it for today. Definitely hit that like button, slap the subscribe, and click on the notification bell if you enjoy this kind of content. And definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about the books I got signed today, and if you enjoyed reading this book, I'd love to know. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Have a great day, and I will see you for the next show. Just remember, every comic has a story.